there. I'm Teresa Norton. Welcome to The View from Abroad. I'm the Broad, and this is the podcast where every week we take a look back at one of the newspaper columns that ran in Hong Kong's South China Morning Post every Saturday from 1993 to 2000. And each week I invite a guest to come along and choose one of those columns, which was written 30 years ago, and have a chat with me about it. And the reason I do that is because so much in the world has changed since they were written. And I think it's interesting, and so far it sounds like you think it's interesting too, to unpack what feels relevant today and what seems out of step with the world today. So my guest this week is licensed therapist and coach James Osborn. As a former international hockey player with a sports psychology master's, James works one-to-one with teams on leadership, team dynamics, and how group cultures influence individual performance and well-being. So we're going to start, as we always do, with the column that he chose. This week, it's Playground Politics. I don't know. Maybe I'm nuts, but the other morning part of me wanted to send my son off to school with a pair of brass knuckles. "Mom, can I tell you something?" he asked in the dark from the top bunk bed. I gave my standard answer. "You can tell me anything. I'm your mother." "Well, there's this kid at school, and he's quite big, and he said tomorrow is my deadline to buy him a slammer and some pogs. And, slammers and pogs have taken the place of basketball cards and marbles on the trading floor of the playground these days. Basically, they are designer milk bottle caps and the plastic discs used for flipping them over. It seems my lad, in a vain attempt to gain the attention of a quite big kid, employed the age-old method of winning friends and influencing people. He offered young Butch a bribe. In exchange, and as a show of good faith, Butch revealed some privileged information, probably something pertaining to the grooming habits of a classmate referred to as Booger Boy, or the identity of the fellow Sylvia Wong has selected as her future husband. In any case, now Butch wanted to clear the books. Apparently, a few previous attempts at collecting Sam's debt had been avoided. I told him I'd bring him the stuff the next day, but yesterday he said today is my deadline, and I can't go to the store before school, and he's quite big. Oh, how the memories of complex schoolyard politics came rushing back to me. The gossip, the intrigue, the threats, and the dread of some quite big playground personality lying in wait. For little girls, the threat of physical violence is less prevalent. It's the psychological warfare that has the wee chicks walking into the schoolyard with sweaty palms. "Melissa and Cindy say that they won't like me anymore, and they won't tell me why. They say they just want to be each other's friends and not mine." I'll take a crack to the chops over that stuff anytime. In fact, I do remember one incident. I was older, maybe 13, and my best friend Susie and I were taken completely by surprise when a gang of girls encircled us as we got off the school bus, and they threatened to beat the poop out of us. I responded by sneaking up behind the 5'10" ringleader and making fun of her pointy eyebrows as she walked away. Susie thought it was the funniest thing on the planet. That girl? She did not. She chased me for a block and a half, and when she caught me, she pushed me in the bushes, and then she slapped my face. Oddly enough, it wasn't getting hit that freaked me out. I laughed in the face of danger. In fact, I think it might have been that I was slightly hysterical at the time. But no, it was the likelihood of seeing her in the schoolyard the next day that had me coming up with infectious diseases that would keep me home. It wasn't the spontaneous combustion that happens between kids in the playground that worries them. It's the knowledge that someone has a plan of attack that makes it hard to get to sleep at night. I did run into that girl, and ironically, it was in the nurse's office as I was trying to convince Miss Wennings that my hangnail was infected and that I ought to be home in bed. When she loped into the office, I was sure I was in for a walloping. "Hey, girl," was all she said. Not, "Hey, girl, I'm going to get your butt after school today." Just, "Hey, girl." Then she gave a note to the nurse and left. Here's the deal, Sam, I said as I stroked his furrowed 7-year-old brow in the dark. You shouldn't have told this kid you'd buy him toys. That's a bad way to make friends. But you made a trade with him, and a deal's a deal. Pick out some of your pogs and a slammer. Give him those and tell him your mom said you're only allowed to buy new things for your friends when it's their birthday. Will this keep the quite big kid from pushing him in the bushes? I don't know. Maybe the boy will forget about the deadline. Or perhaps he'll accept used pogs as a fair trade for a well-kept secret. But if my kid does have to face off with Butch at high noon, at least he'll have had a good night's sleep. Welcome, James.
Hey,
it's so
Teresa.
Good to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
How you doing?
I'm doing great.
Yeah?
I'm kind of thrilled because I think you're closer to probably my son's age than anybody that I've had on the show so far.
And he appears in the column this week, yeah?
Yes, he does.
He's a big feature of the playground politics.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, it's one of the things that's kind of thrilling to me is this kind of opens up the door to me thinking there doesn't have to be, you don't have to have 30 years of adulthood to be somebody that would be really interesting to unpack whether or not these things still make sense, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm super glad you're here.
Thank you.
Let's just start. And anything strike you as particularly out of step?
Yeah.
today?
Well, out of step, I don't know. I think bullying is still obviously around in a really, really prevalent way. And maybe the forms of bullying have changed a little bit. I think obviously with the smartphone, and I think it's one of the reasons I chose this column. It's so topical at the moment with the kind of wider conversation. So I think actually there's a lot about your column that still really resonates. And I work with a lot of young people, kind of young adults, male and female, and the pieces around psychological warfare that you talk about and around the spontaneous combustion in the playground, not necessarily being the really troublesome bit. It's the impending doom and the narratives that we create leading up to an incident and then after an incident, I think, that really stop us sleeping and really get into the psyche. Yeah, exactly. In a big way, for many, in some cases, many years. So I think maybe the way bullying takes place has changed, and certain things like, I think children are introduced to a lot more mature topics a lot sooner, thanks to the smartphone. But bullying is still ever present.
Thanks or curses too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a massive curse, I think. Right. Yeah, they're getting introduced to some really, really mature concepts much younger than we were.
One thing that strikes me as being sort of, sounds a little off to me today, even though I do call myself the Broad on The View from a Broad. The quote in the column was that the wee chicks faced psychological warfare, kind of the mean girls idea. And what could be maybe considered today canceling or ghosting. And I kind of in those days, we just didn't think about that so much in terms of boys, but it's such a big subject now.
It's huge. Yeah. And at the risk of diving straight into some pretty heavy stuff,
Go ahead.
The whole conversation around masculinity and femininity, I think is particularly problematic because it's such a limiting framework through which to view growth, character, personality, humans, that you've got to kind of, your personality traits have to fit into these presumed boxes that only apply to certain genders. Assertiveness, that's male, and collaboration, that's female.
So and nurturing is female, and
exactly. So even just that framework, I think, is really, really problematic. And of the with the prevalence of the iPhone, I think they're getting introduced to those boxes much younger. And I think because maybe some of these platforms do thrive on outrage and do thrive on polarizing, and they're getting much firmer messages around what's okay and what's not okay. The stakes feel so much higher, I think, for youngsters to misstep, to get it wrong. The boy that is a bit affectionate and ridiculed for being, too effeminate. It's a tightrope.
And I'll tell you something. I think that there is also this much larger audience. When I was, look, I had that whole thing happen to me when I was 12, not what I quote in the column, but just being on the outs with the in crowd.
Yeah.
I did something, I said something, and suddenly nobody was talking to me anymore.
Painful. Yeah.
And it was just, I can remember saying to my mother, I just don't want to go to school anymore.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
God bless her. She said to me, honey, she told me a great story about when she was a young girl and got out with the in crowd and said every day it's going to be feel a little less painful.
Yeah.
And that was helpful for me to hear. But the fact of the matter was the in crowd was just 7 girls. Now the in crowd is the friggin' universe.
Yeah.
It's all the likes and everybody looking at everything, right?
Yeah. And at that age, thanks to biological things that are going on inside us, our need for belonging and our sensitivity to things like social status and hierarchy and things are so much more potent at that age that it's incredibly painful. As you know, I mean, I felt it too. And just your mum validating that for you instead of trying to fix it, just tell you a story about her own experience, I think is great. I think it's really, really important, for parents not to dive in and say, it's going to be okay, don't worry, it's fine, how can we fix this? Just validating, this is a really tough time.
This too shall pass.
Yeah. But you're right, there are so many more eyes.
It's sort of the social equivalent of, for every social door that slams shut, another one opens.
Yeah.
But it's hell in the hallway.
Oh, yeah. And
for that opportunity to get friendly again. And, I'll tell you something. I had, when I had that experience of being on the outs, it was what blossomed my best friendship with another girl who said to me, I don't dig this stuff. No. I don't dig this in club, out club, and let's be friends together. And we will just promise that we won't ever gossip.
Yeah, amazing.
And that's how we'll avoid it. And we were friends for most of her life.
Yeah, that's amazing. No, I think I have a real guiding principle in kind of my practice around self-belief being hard-earned. And when it's hard-earned, it's really powerful. But that, so tough moments, tough missteps or failures or being on the outs and things like that, they are definitely gateways to growth and character development and asking questions of yourself and developing belief and resilience. But in the moment, especially that age when perspective's a tough thing to come by, even when you get given some perspective by an older person, you don't necessarily want to listen to that. And that, you're not even sure what kind of putting things into perspective really means. It's painful. Yeah.
And also I'm just thinking here, it's an opportunity if you are able at that stage to frame it to say, and that's kind of what happened with Susie and me. What kind of friends do I want?
Yeah.
Do I want these mean people to be my friends?
Yeah.
Can I be okay with having them not like me and find people who I like? Yeah.
But as you say, with the increase in audience and eyes, with social media, people commenting on things, seeing things, it's all happening. Not just in public on the playground, but much, much wider. I think it's even harder for children to feel like they're in it with someone else, or to feel like they're not alone, or that they're not the kind of the butt of everyone's joke. So Susie reaching out to you is a beautiful thing, and you found each other. I think maybe that's one thing that's changed a little bit. It's got harder, I think, because as you say quite rightly, the audience is just so much bigger. Yeah. It's tough, really difficult, I think.
It is tough.
Yeah.
One of the things that I was going to chat with you about, I know we've both watched it. I've watched it 3 times.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Is Adolescence. And it was brought to my attention by a line in my BBC, that's what I read in the morning, my BBC news feed, and it said, flawless television. And I thought, well, okay, I don't know what it is, but I'll see. My goodness.
It's compelling, right?
It's the performances. the cinematography, but the potency of that message, that story for any parent. It's every parent's worst nightmare.
I think you're right. I think one of the things the show gets really right, actually, is the kind of bumbling around of some of the adults in trying to figure this stuff out and find a motive and understand, that quite powerful scene, I think, with the policeman's son, where he's talking to him and kind of laying it out and saying, Dad, this is what this means, this is what this means, this is what this emoji means, this is what this means. There is this real, I think, eye-opening moment for a lot of adults in terms of, wow, there's a whole different language, a whole third space where things are happening, on their phones and online, that maybe we thought we knew what was happening there, but it's much more potent and problematic than maybe I think a lot of people realized. And the show gets lots of stuff right, but I thought that bit in particular was really, really compelling. And I think the other thing, which I was kind of alluding to a little bit earlier, is the boy's shame, I think, in the sense of feeling the self-loathing that I think was going on for him, and the disgust, am I ugly, wanting people to like him, that I think comes from not really feeling like you belong anywhere, the online ridicule. It's not necessarily those moments, like you say, the spontaneous combustion of the moment. It's the narrative that can be built up on that of, I'm disgusting, I'm unlikable, and the kind of shame, and I'm handling this really badly, and I can't really tell anyone about this because it's humiliating. And that's the thing that I think a lot of kids will resonate with in terms of the effects of bullying,
And I think that as a parent, all you want is the antidote.
Oh yeah.
All you want is for them to feel as good about themselves as you feel about them.
This is, I work with a lot of young people. I work with a lot of parents as well. And I haven't had a session, I don't think, in the past kind of 10 days where someone hasn't come in and wanted to talk about it. But this is where I go back to the whole conversation around masculinity and femininity being quite unhelpful, because it's happening in separate places. And boys are asking questions like, how do I be a man? Well, I've got news for you. By the time
you're human.
Exactly. By the time you get to 18, you'll be a man. If you make it that far, that's going to take care of itself. What we need to be having conversations is how to be a good human, how to be a good citizen, how to develop character, how to develop courage. And potentially masculinity and femininity aren't that helpful as terms, if they ever were, but particularly the prescriptive, limiting way that we use them, where you step outside of those presumed boxes, you're in trouble, ridicule, ostracized, and we're ending up with a lot of people, girls too, I think, end up very disconnected from themselves. Okay, so that part of me isn't particularly welcome. I feel like I'm quite affectionate.
I can tell you, this has been going on for girls for a long time. This whole idea of it all, appearances being everything.
Yeah.
Appearance is not only being physical appearance, but how does this look to other people?
Yeah.
That was my whole thing. I didn't want to be cheap or slutty anything, except that I wanted to look cheap and slutty.
Yeah.
I just didn't want anybody.
That's what I mean.
I was.
Those perceived stakes are so high. That's what I think. There's less and less scope for play, experimentation, creativity. The license for boys and girls to explore, try on different hats.
Well,
feel into parts of themselves.
Here for a second, because I would say, certainly in terms of fluidity and sexual gender, there has never been a broader spectrum of choice and opportunity to see what feels like the right fit.
It's very much in pockets, I think. So they're 100% there. I think there are spaces where experimentation is encouraged. They're hugely tolerant. The full spectrum of human traits are welcome and celebrated. And then there are a lot of spaces where that hasn't. And I think you're totally right. It's not just a male, female, or masculine, femininity issue. There's a class issue, poverty issue, race issue. It's happening. It's very, very intersectional in terms of all the different layers of influence. So you're completely right. But I do think there are plenty of places where straying from the perceived right way of being a man or a woman is still heavily punished through ridicule or through messages or through, and there's a big I think there's a bit of a gap in empathy between the two at probably a time when particularly men and women want to be closer than ever, because I think in a lot of ways young people are worse off than their previous generations, and teaming up to talk to power, address some structural things, policy, that type of thing would be beneficial. But I think actually they're kind of pitted in this culture war, sadly, that certain people definitely benefit from. But in so many ways, they should be closer than ever. And I think more conversations where masculinity and femininity is discussed either together or not at all. Just talk about humans being able to be playful and try things on and develop character and fail forward, misstep, but be able to use that misstep as a way to fail forward with a bit of compassion.
Listen, let's take a break.
Cool.
I am very excited to hear about the charity that you've chosen to talk about, and cool. B, talk about what your own personal story is.
Cool. Yay. Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. Tell me about this charity, and I'm going to let the cat out of the bag right from the beginning and say, it's your mom's charity.
It is. Yeah, it's my mom's charity. Yeah. So it's called the Royal Coffee Caravan, and it's based in Suffolk at the moment, in the east of England at the moment, and it tackles loneliness and isolation in rural areas. So I don't think the apple has fallen very far from the tree with Mum and I in terms of a real empathy, I think, for loneliness and for isolation. I think we're both quite heavily in touch with the pain that comes with loneliness. And I definitely talk a lot about kind of support networks and meaningful relationships in the work that I do. Mum is on a mission. It was actually started by a woman in 2003, and Mum has kind of been CEO for the last, I think, 18 years. She'll correct me if I'm wrong on that.
Share the principle of it.
Yeah. So it began, I mean, maybe I'll share a little bit about some of the reasons for it. Because particularly in rural areas over the last kind of 20 years or so, I think, and the reasons for this are many. There's less community, less communal areas, less kind of village shops, less buses moving people to and from and through villages to get people about, and less kind of infrastructure to support community. And increasingly, I think, loads and loads of research and statistics showing that more and more people are feeling lonely as we go through life. And there are just many, many people, particularly elderly people, but the more you look into it, it's not actually only old people who will go through weeks without seeing anyone. Maybe their son or daughter comes and visits, and with out of town kind of big supermarkets propping up, the village shops kind of died away. So the Coffee Caravan, the charity, takes these very nice caravans out into communities, out into villages, gets the people out of their homes, into the middle, tea, coffee. They signpost places that they can find support. They signpost places they can access various bits of welfare or connections or talk to people.
I just have to say something, because I'm thinking, because I was in Hong Kong for 40 years. Of course, I have this British American language thing.
Yeah.
Caravan is like it's sort of like a food truck, isn't it?
A little bit, like a little kind of motorhome,
like a trailer.
Yeah. I think a very nice one, and they've got loads now, and they're doing hundreds of visits a year. Off the back of that, they've got lots of kind of initiatives, a thing called Meetup Mondays, where they get in touch with the pubs that are still running, who serve free tea and coffee on a Monday and get everyone out and get everyone in.
I saw on the website a picture of all of these folks sitting in folding chairs, and I thought,
it's like that. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
I'd love to join them.
Yeah.
What fun.
I mean, the research around loneliness and isolation, it's, the equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It's all-cause mortality linked to severe kind of mental health issues like depression and kind of cognitive decline. They define loneliness as it's not just how social you are, it's often a feeling, but it's the lack of meaningful connections. And that's what they're really striving to do, is deliver more meaningful connections. That's their vision. And Mum is just on a mission. And this is a woman who she raised the four of us, sacrificed a career. My dad was away a lot, raised the four of us, did an amazing job. And then in the kind of second half of her life, found her career and has just, she's really gone for it. And she's just getting some good recognition at the moment. She just is getting the British Empire Medal. So she's on the honors list this year, which is incredible. She's got an honorary degree from Ipswich University. And, you know, knowing her as well as I do, she's battled imposter syndrome. She talks in front of thousands of people, really battled imposter. She's the kind of epitome of feeling fear and doing it anyway. She's incredible. She's a force. And quite rightly, I think she's getting some recognition for it. And the apple's not fallen far from the tree with that empathy around loneliness, and just feeling just how important kind of great relationships are as a protection for mental health.
Wonderful. Give us the name of the charity again.
The Royal Coffee Caravan.
Royal Coffee Caravan.
That's right.
.org.uk.
Thank you. Yeah.
There we go.
Thank you.
And we are back, and I am all headphones. I'm all ears.
Yeah, I love this part of your podcast. I think it's great. Well, at the risk of the podcast becoming a bit of an ode to my parents, the story actually came to me as about my dad. And the bit of the column that got me thinking this is where you're giving Sammy some wisdom, or Sam some wisdom, you know, about not buying his way to making friends. And it made me think of a bit of wisdom I got from my dad, and there's a bit of a story to it. I played hockey, as you've said, and we'd go abroad a lot, and the parents would travel with us, and through these kind of tournaments, they'd stay at different hotels, and every now and again we'd get rest days midway through the tournaments where we'd get to go and hang out at the parents' hotels and spend some time with them. And I don't know if you know about hockey in the UK. It's quite an upper class sport, which
it's field hockey, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Not knock your teeth out with a hockey puck on the ice.
Exactly. Yeah. Although we did wear gum shields, and there was some teeth flying around for sure. But very upper class sport, which we're not at all. And I remember going over to our parents' hotels on the rest day and seeing a lot of wealthy, powerful men, dads, holding court, loud, using their voices, and seeing my dad just very relaxed, quite engaged, but not really saying anything. We go to dinners, he wouldn't say much. And I don't know why it stuck with me so much, but it really lodged its way into my psyche about dad. Just that image of him just being happy there, not really using his voice. And for some reason, it really stuck with me, that image of him. And it's only later on that I kind of really got it. And we became friends with one of the players, and I became really good friends with his dad. And his dad, I was having a drink with him once, and he said, you know, the thing I really, really love about your father and always impressed me about your dad was that he just does not care for the sound of his own voice. He is so happy being quiet, not speaking up. And when we used to go away on these tournaments, it was a really nice energy to be around, and a kind of change of pace. And I remember a couple of years later, he sat me down and we were just chatting. And he's never been one for wisdoms of nug. He's a lead by doing kind of guy. But he did say to me, you know, only use your voice if you're going to add some value. And really taught me the importance of listening more than you're speaking, and listening first. And I have to say, you know, my dad is an absolute hero of mine, like my mum. You know, I'm incredibly lucky, and he is a very he's one of these guys that's found a lot of purpose in looking after his family and providing for his family. And I'm lucky in a lot of ways. He's taught me a lot about the importance of humor. He's an incredibly funny man. He showed me what it's like to be silly from quite young. He's happy to be silly. He's able to recognize his flaws and be vulnerable. There's a lot to love about him. And actually, going back to our previous conversation about role models, which is kind of a big part of what we were talking about earlier, you know, he absolutely is one. You know, to a lot of my friends, my nephew. I've got four nephews. myself, other people around here. He's very lucky.
Well, I'll tell you something. When I was younger, I thought everybody had a family like mine.
Yeah.
I thought everybody came home to what I came home to.
Mm.
And it was only as I got older and my friends, I have friends that I've had for my whole lifetime.
Yeah.
You know, I've been very fortunate in having very deep, lasting friendships, and finding out that it wasn't like my house.
No.
And how, and it's not always the fault of the parent that it's not like our houses were, it sounds like, James, you know, but that my mother said to me, she said, when you're a mother, you're under pressure. You know, your kids ask you questions. They don't say, you know, can I go to that party at Marjorie's? The parents won't be there. Have a few days to think about it and get back to me when you've considered it. They go, I need to know now. Right? She said, you make the best decisions you can under pressure, and you are always under pressure.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good reminder, so that everybody who's been kind enough to join us for this wonderful conversation can kind of keep that in mind, whether you're a younger person who is feeling the overwhelming emotions of not fitting in, or whether you're a parent who's worried about a young person and thinking, am I not doing everything I'm supposed to be doing? The key to it, I think, is that you have to have somebody you can talk to about it. And it may not be a kid talking to their parent, and it may not be a parent talking to their kid. Maybe somebody needs to be talking to somebody like you.
Right? I think you're absolutely right. I mean, it comes back to, again, a little bit about the shame that can come with perceived missteps or failings, or, you know, this kind of internalized narrative. And a big antidote to that, I think, is a great relationship and B, compassion. You know, self-compassion, I truly believe it's a skill. You know, it's something you can cultivate. A good way to cultivate it is to go out there and be compassionate with others. And you find you do, then it's kind of a muscle that you start working. You're more able to show it yourself. But that's why I come back to really investing in the relationships around you. But compassion, I think you're totally right. And you can find that, as I say, as you mentioned, you can find it with a therapist or with a coach or with a kind of a great friend, and then you can cultivate it for yourself as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us, James Osborn. Let's just give your mom's charity one more plug. It's Royal
Coffee Caravan.
.org.uk. Have a look. Thank you so much for being with us. Hey, listen, breathe all the time. Come up slowly.
Yeah.
Because, hey, what if it's good?
Yeah. Love it.